Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Charlene Aaron. Today, 2 million people without power in Florida. Tropical storm Ian swamping Florida, leaving people trapped in their homes.
That house halfway underwater. There goes my car floating away.
Now, one of the strongest hurricanes to ever hit the U.S. threatens to bring catastrophic flooding inland. The wife of a pro-life activist speaking out as Republican senators demand answers from the FBI about why they raided their home at gunpoint and arrested him. Students at a major university getting money from the school so they can make moves to support abortion rights. And worship leader Sean Foyt with a new documentary about his worship tour during the COVID lockdowns and the opposition he faced.
But yet in the midst of it, God was breaking out in every single city that we went to.
Those stories and more today on CBN NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
And we begin in Florida with flash flood warnings in effect as Ian, downgraded from a hurricane to a tropical storm, is threatening to bring devastating flooding and other damage to the inland areas of the state. The National Hurricane Center warned of severe and life-threatening storm surge. Dale Hurd brings us this look at the dangers from this extremely powerful storm.
It's the 5th strongest hurricane to ever hit the American mainland, trapping people in flooded homes amid rising floodwaters. Many who refused to evacuate probably wish they had. The Category 4 hurricane with 155-mile-per-hour top winds made landfall in Charlotte Harbor south of Tampa, sending a storm surge of 12 to 18 feet through the cities of Fort Myers and Naples. Sharks were seen swimming in the streets. This door in Naples was blown in from the water pressure, and half the streets in that city are impassable. Large boats were pushed around like toys.
4 of them. 4 boats.
One house was seen floating away.
That house halfway underwater. There goes my car floating away.
The storm dumped as much as a foot of rain on some cities as it barreled across the Florida peninsula.
Are you guys okay?
The first floor of this Naples fire station was inundated under more than 3 feet of water as firefighters worked to salvage equipment. Ian will be remembered as one of the worst storms to ever hit the state of Florida, knocking out power to at least 2.5 million people.
But just understand that number is going to grow. You're going to see more power outages as this storm moves through the center part of our state and before it exits into the Atlantic coast.
42,000 linemen were already in place to restore power in 30 different areas across the state. Rescue teams and state officials are fanning out to help victims and begin assessing damage. Operation Blessing has already begun assisting in the emergency from their base in Ocala.
We're preparing by putting together some pallets of buckets for cleaning. We have plenty of pallets of water also for distribution. And then we have pallets of tarps, all those included in the trucks that we'll be sending out. We have plenty of chainsaws and plenty of people who know how to operate those chainsaws. So in the case that we need to do any downed trees, anything of that nature, we're prepared to help.
Now a tropical storm, Ian has moved into the Atlantic and is expected to make landfall again in Georgia or South Carolina this weekend, bringing heavy winds, rain, and a storm surge. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
And CBN's Brody Carter is on the ground in Orlando. Brody, Ian is headed your way. Tell us what's happening.
Yeah, most definitely. The wind and the rain certainly picking up this morning. It started intensifying probably last night at 9 p.m. rather, and it probably hit its peak around 2 p.m. in my opinion. But I stand corrected as the wind really starts swooping in around us. You got to get a power stance really to keep your ground and to hold it. As I was saying, that wind was so intense last night that I was on the 4th floor. And you know how they say it's always hotter on the 4th floor? Well, in a hurricane, it's always windier on the 4th floor. And by golly, the entire building was shaking by the sheer force of that wind actually coming through. Sitting in my room, I could see the door frames move, as well as those window shades shifting with the movement of the building, so it was quite frightening. I can't even imagine what those people were going through in southwestern Florida who didn't evacuate and tried to bear down the storm. So as this has been downgraded to a tropical storm, those winds coming through upwards of 73 miles an hour as the center of the hurricane is expected to come through Orlando around 9 o'clock this morning. So during the 700 Club, it's really going to be at its full peak of blustery. So that's really comparable to having a weak tornado just spinning constantly around you for several hours. But it's not the high winds that are the concern right now, Charlene. It's actually the heightened catastrophic capabilities of the floods that are coming our way. We've got rain in the forecast. I just got another alert that flash flooding is a very high possibility here in the area of Florida.
So, Brody,
so
tell
just
me
about 5 miles outside.
Tell me about the people who fled their homes, who came to Orlando. What can you tell us about them?
Yeah. Well, most definitely. My hotel is chock full of those people who came from southwestern Florida, many seeking refuge from the strength of the storm. But since the cone of uncertainty was just quite frankly that, it was uncertain. Nobody knew who was going to evacuate at one time. Tampa, they thought, was going to be ground zero for this hurricane to hit. Turns out it was just 90 miles south. So a lot of people had to make a split-second decision. One guy I talked to says he was just thankful to get out with his life.
Wow.
You're thinking about your personal safety. You're thinking about your house. You're thinking about your boat. And I just took the safety off the table because it was like, I just, you know, the number one issue, it's like, let me get out of there. So it is upsetting about the whatever loss, the material loss we're going to have or what we're going to find when we get there. But the fact that we're safe is the most important thing to me. So, you know, I'm feeling good about that.
Thank God he's safe. And CBN's Brody Carter from Orlando, Florida. Brody, stay safe. Our prayers are with you. Thank you so much for the incredible coverage you're giving us.
Charlene, thank you for your time.
God bless. And if you would like to help Operation Blessing's disaster relief efforts, go to their story on what's happening in Florida on ob.org. Well, Republican senators are demanding answers from the FBI about the arrest at gunpoint of a pro-life activist. The agency sending some 20 to 30 agents armed with rifles to the home of Mark Houck last Friday, taking him away in front of his family. The case stemmed from a minor altercation Houck had with a volunteer at a Planned Parenthood abortion clinic in Philadelphia last October. The case never went to court, but the Justice Department came after Houck. And last night on Tucker Carlson on Fox News, Houck's wife, Ryan Marie, talked about the impact of the FBI assault on their children.
The older ones, we can talk, we can cry. We've had some counseling. We have more counseling to do. And the little ones, they're scared. They're scared. There's a lot of crying and a lot of unrestful sleep. A lot of kids in our bed at night and in the morning.
And Houck entered a not guilty plea to the federal charge earlier this week. The FBI denies it used excessive force, but Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz called the raid absurd, and other Republicans are asking for more information about the FBI's actions. Coming up, students with a major university are getting money from the school to pay for films supporting abortion rights. We'll have the details when we come back. Students at the University of Southern California are getting some financial help to produce pro-abortion films. USC's Annenberg School of Communications is providing at least 3 students with $25,000 each to help pay for script development and production. Appearing on this week's Global Lane program on the CBN News Channel, Campus Reform correspondent Emily Fowler says that the university is awarding the grant money to help educate people about their, quote, reproductive rights.
When we say reproductive rights, this university means pro-abortion ideology. And this is a private university, but even at private universities, you have a diverse group of people with different ideas, right? So what this university is doing is a very clear bias in higher education because they are encouraging and promoting only one point of view, and that is the pro-abortion point of view. So then the pro-life students are being denied an opportunity that they could have to showcase their point of view on this particular issue.
It seems that they're now teaching students to be advocates for a particular position. So what happens to those journalism and communication students who favor a more balanced approach, like you mentioned, those who may want to, say, report about adoption or about women who have regretted their decision to have an abortion? What happens to them?
So at this university in particular, these students are going to be probably looked down upon for their views. At the University of Southern California, the dean came out in the wake of the Supreme Court's decision on Roe v. Wade and said blatantly that she thought it was healthier for a woman to have an abortion than to actually give birth. And when you have leaders at these universities coming out and publicly making statements like that, it's very discouraging to pro-life students, and they're going to feel completely unable to showcase their views on campus. Because why would you think, if the dean of the university is coming out and saying things like that, then if I was a student there, I would think, why would I ever make a pro-life film? I would get a horrible grade. And so they're making decisions based off how they think their message is going to be received.
Are there similar pro-abortion programs at other colleges and universities? If so, where?
Universities have become much more vocal on this issue after Roe v. Wade, and we have seen multiple stories about pro-life students, not just in journalism schools, but in all different fields, getting lashed back for their beliefs. So at the University of Iowa, there was a student who was tabling, and someone actually came up and tried to flip over the table. Same thing at George Mason University in Virginia. Another student also was tabling, and they had their pro-life resources scattered all over by other students.
On another topic, okay, this one involves religious freedom on campus. The Supreme Court recently refused an emergency request by Yeshiva University to block a new state court decision, New York state court decision, requiring the Orthodox Jewish school to recognize an LGBTQ club on campus. Tell us about that. What happened and what may happen next?
So Yeshiva is a Jewish school in New York, and they denied an LGBTQ club recognition on campus because it was in contrast with their view of the Torah. And when the LGBTQ club sued them, they took the case to the Supreme Court. Now, the Supreme Court currently, as of a recent decision, has taken that decision back to the state. But the real question here is who is going to be the one to interpret the Torah for this school, the leaders at the school or the Supreme Court?
During the last term, the U.S. Supreme Court made various decisions reaffirming religious freedom. It seems that they've sent this case, as you said, back to New York's courts to decide. So I'm assuming, Emily, you believe they should have intervened to uphold Yeshiva University's right to decide which clubs to allow based on their religious and moral beliefs. Tell us more.
Yes, so I'm actually a student at a Christian school. The Masters University is a Christian conservative private school. And I chose that university because I wanted to be around people who had the same beliefs as me. So I chose it based off my belief system. And I know that there are many Jewish students who went to yeshiva because they're Jewish and they wanted to be around people who held their beliefs. So I think it's very unfair to them that now the school is being forced to conform to another belief system, even though they're a private school who should get to decide how to uphold their religious values, just because they have to be inclusive to this one group. And if it happened to Yeshiva University, it could happen to my school. And I know it would be detrimental to our student body if we had someone who decided to come in and decide that they didn't agree with us, so they were just going to try to change our entire way of life here at Masters.
Emily Fowler, thank you so much for setting us straight today.
Thank you for having me.
Also on tonight's Global Lane program, abortion is on the ballot in 5 states next month. We'll tell you about one of the most radical proposals, and many countries around the world are losing population. We have a look at what that may mean for the future. And you can watch these stories and more on the Global Lane tonight on the CBN News Channel at 8:30 Eastern or on the CBN News app. Still ahead, worship leader Sean Feucht held mass outdoor concerts around the world, even during government lockdowns. Now he's taking us behind the scenes in a brand new documentary called Super Spreader. We'll have that story right after this. Worship leader Sean Feucht made headlines for traveling the country with his Let Us Worship tour. He was harshly criticized for drawing mass crowds during the COVID lockdowns. Now he has a new documentary about the impact of the tour called Super Spreader. Wendy Griffith brings us that story.
After a 2020 run for Congress in California didn't pan out, Sean Feucht chose what some might see as a higher calling, hitting the road for the Let Us Worship tour. It quickly caught on as thousands gathered in cities across America to praise the Lord. Since the tour coincided with the height of the COVID pandemic, it led to accusations of Sean being a super spreader of the virus. That also led to the title for his new documentary.
I could feel something inside of me, like we got to take a stand.
Christian singer and activist Sean Feucht leading what's called Let Us Worship.
This guy is probably responsible for hundreds of deaths.
We thank you, Lord, that there's another story that the media isn't telling. It is one of hope.
There's a pandemic, there's a plague. Here's a move of God that's going to change America.
We recently talked to Sean about that on CBN's The Prayer Link.
Well, Sean, in your documentary, people actually accuse you of causing deaths because you held your events during the pandemic. What's your response to that?
Well, we know that wasn't true because, there was no single COVID outbreak of COVID related to any of our events. And that's kind of a spoiler because at the end we shared that. I felt like it was important to let people see the journey that we were on. The people that were for us, the people that were against us, but yet in the midst of it, God was breaking out in every single city that we went to.
Christians are rising up, I'm telling you guys.
What do you want them to take away from it when it's all said and done?
I think courage and boldness. I want people to feel like empowered to know that even when they face resistance, and even actually sometimes the resistance is the very thing that proves that you're on your way to a breakthrough. I think a lot of times in America, Christians are not really used to pushback. We're not really used to resistance, but yet Jesus calls us into places where we're going to face resistance. And it's exactly what happened with us. Here we have this amazing harvest, this incredible, sweeping of revival that we were experiencing, but yet we have, Antifa attacking us. We have protesters, antagonizers. We have governors fining us.
Feucht says the documentary will be in some 500 theaters beginning September 29th.
And we're going to see, this wave of revival that we experience across America is actually going to be in theaters. And we're going to try to plan to have an evangelist be in every single theater that it's shown in, so that at the end of the theater, people can get saved, get healed, get delivered. I mean, that's what we want to see happen.
Sean also recently released a new song called Imago Dei, Latin for Image of God, inspired by what he saw as apathy following the historic Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe v. Wade.
I've been praying for the overturning of Roe v. Wade since I was a teenager. I mean, I have this life band on. I've had this one on for 10 years. I had one on before this for 12. But I was so discouraged when it finally happened because the response of the church was so weak. I mean, it was pathetic. People were like not celebrating. Here I'm thinking we should have millions of Christians dancing around the streets of America. God answered a 50-year prayer request. And I was about to get on Twitter and Facebook and just start raging on the state of the church. And the Lord spoke to me and he said, sing the song of life over a generation. Remind them that they are made in my image. And, songs will go to places that sermons and tweets will never go. They'll touch the human heart.
Sean believes Roe had to go in order for real revival to break forth in America.
I think that, it was a curse. It was child sacrifice. It's a death decree that was hanging over the nation. Only China and North Korea are worse, on their abortion rules. I mean, that puts us in not very good company in America. And, of course, now the battle goes to the States. And we're starting to see these victories.
This year's Let Us Worship Tour finale will be held on the National Mall in Washington, D.C., October 22nd. Foyt says they'll also announce a 50-state Kingdom to the Capital initiative to bring worship to all 50 states over the next 2 years. Wendy Griffith, CBN News.
And Super Spreader opens in theaters for a limited run today. Check your local listings for a theater near you. Coming up, students gathered at their flagpoles around the country Thursday to pray for the annual See You at the Pole. We'll hear what the theme of this year's event was and what they prayed for when we come back. Stay with us. Students gathered at sunrise around their school's flagpoles Wednesday morning to pray. The national initiative called See You at the Pole encourages students from elementary school to college to pray for one another and the world. This year's theme was aflame, motivating students to be on fire for Christ. And some did that through praise and worship.
Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing, great are you,
And thousands more gathered to lift up their friends, their school, the country, and the world. The initiative is part of the Global Student Week of Prayer, hoping to inspire unity in Christ. Look at that. It's absolutely beautiful. That's going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel anytime or online with cbnnews.com. Also, tell us what you think about the stories you've seen here by emailing newswatch@cbn.com or talk to us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We hope you'll join us next time. Have a terrific day.